Welcome back. I hope you have been enjoying season 2 of the Monochrome Podcast. I know our team has been having a ton of fun recording them. We love podcast days, both recording and listening. But hopefully you have been a part of the last 2 episodes for season 2, and you're just ready to dive in to some more awesome topics and conversations. So let's do it. JT, kick us off. You've got some interesting news to share with us.
Yeah, so this is a little bit old at this point, but it's also still very much relevant. I'm calling it the TikTok meltdown. It is a really hot topic right now, both politically and internationally, but I think there's a lot to unpack here for like church comms teams, and if you're a content creator, that sort of stuff, and how maybe it's going to impact how your church reaches your community and gets the word out about what you guys are doing. So as you guys know, TikTok was banned for a little bit back in January, and then it was kind of opened back up. But as of the time of this recording, you can't download it. It's still banned in the stores. But if you have it already, you can use it. But I think coming up, and I don't know the exact date, but the ban is still set to be put in effect, and so the situation there is developing. But what I wanted to really dive into is, like, a lot of people have built a whole platform on TikTok, or some churches have, and hopefully you're also posting other platforms. But that's kind of what I want to talk about, is like no platform is permanent. These are not permanent institutions. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Vine, like we've seen this happen musically. Vine. We've seen this happen before, where these, MySpace, these platforms that seem like staples in society can disappear within a matter of 5 or 6 years to where they're completely obsolete. And so, so I just want to talk about a little bit about, like, how do you think churches can avoid, like, like, what's going to happen? How can you keep from getting crippled by this? Like, where are these people who are on TikTok going to? Well,
I would say rule number 1, you got to be a busy bee. You have to cross-pollinate. Like, you should never just stick with one platform. Now, there is a conversation and the argument that, well, most of my audience is here, and that's great. Right. And that's okay. And then that you're speaking to most of your audience on that one platform. Like, maybe it's Facebook or Instagram. I know we are super Instagram heavy. That's where most of our followers and attention is. But because of what you said, these places have a lifespan sometimes, these different platforms. So you have to still have your toes dipped in these other areas. You don't have to go crazy. You don't have to do all of them. You don't have to have 10 different platforms. But it's important that if something happens, you're kind of prepared. You kind of know how to use the other platform. You've already maybe got a little bit of a following so that you can, like, grow and tell your audience, hey, we're not starting from scratch. We're not going to be hard to find. All the important stuff, all of our culture almost that you created on your platform is still there. If that place were to get canceled, that you can just transition over to this one, and we'll be your safe place still on this new platform if it happens.
And it can be overwhelming to have to post on all the platforms, but I would encourage using a social media content management system that can cross post. So maybe, ideally you're making specifically tailored content towards TikTok and specifically tailored content towards Facebook. But, like, a lot of churches don't have the bandwidth or the time to put out that amount of content tailored towards certain platforms and the demographics that are on those platforms. But you can at least cross post what you're already posting. Like, for us, Instagram's our sweet spot, but we also post all the same things on YouTube Shorts, on Facebook, on TikTok, and any other relevant platforms that show up. So that if, for example, Instagram went down, hopefully our audience could migrate to one of those other platforms and they wouldn't miss a beat. It would be the same content that we've already been posting. And then JT,
I was gonna say, could you throw out a name or two of those tools that you mentioned that help you post to multiple platforms at a time?
Only
I know I'm
Pult
catching you out of the blue here.
No, you're good. Only Pult's one that we use. I know there's one that's specifically designed for the church that I need to look up the name of.
Okay.
But I'll put some links in the description of where you can find some more information about those kinds of tools.
If you're only using Meta to post to your Facebook and
don't.
Instagram, I would start transitioning away from that. That can be dangerous.
Yeah. Another great one that's fairly inexpensive and does a good job is Loomly.
Loomly. Mm-hmm.
We used it for a little bit. It does great with video. It's fairly cheap, and you can customize things based on what platform it's going to. So that's a great one as well. It's not good for like comments and DMs and things of that nature, but it's really good for just getting content up in the first place. So definitely do that. And then here's the second thing I would say you need to do. You need to have an email list for your church. And I know a lot of churches have like a prayer chain, which is great. I'm probably have never read that email, but you need to have like a marketing outward facing email list that you are collecting information from people and finding creative ways to transfer your social media engagement into people who are getting emails from you. Maybe it's notifications about live stream. Maybe it's special events that you guys do that you notify the community about. Anything like that, you need to have an email list because you actually own that. And you can migrate that from MailChimp or to Salesforce or anything that you guys want to use to do that.
The audience does not disappear when TikTok gets blocked or Meta goes down or
for sure. So that's how you can own your audience. So even if all these social platforms go down, you have a way to connect with people consistently and get right in front of them with your information.
I will just say you can never beat just the face-to-face connections too. So while you may have a following, it is good to just meet up and connect with people face-to-face, which hopefully you're doing every Sunday in your church anyway. But this is my shameless segue into who likes to play golf. This is another great way to get to know people, get their emails, get them on your email list. But again, shameless segue. Instead of a shameless plug, I'm doing a shameless segue, I guess. We have some amazing friends at Amplio Systems. While they're known for being an AVL integrator, they love golf. And I just have to say that they are awesome at providing a community setting to get to know other people who do what you do. You can have these conversations about your social platforms and talk about how other churches are navigating this and how they're figuring out how to work with these changes constantly happening. And one of the best ways to do that is on a golf course. So this group, Amplio Systems, again, they're an AVL integrator, but they're amazing. They host a free golf event. It's going to be in Nashville, Tennessee in October, actually a day before SALT conference starts. But they're an amazing group, and we partnered with them last year and then this year again to help promote that golf event so that you guys can talk to other people from churches from all across the country, connect and see how other people are handling the challenges that they face. But we actually sat down to do an interview with them. So take a listen to these awesome people and our team and the conversation that we were able to have.
I am so excited for this interview, for this conversation that's about to come. I am sitting here with my friend, Caleb Loeppky from Amplio Systems. Hello, Caleb. How are you?
What is going on, man? It's good to be here.
So honored to have you on the Monochrome Podcast. One of the reasons that this conversation is going to be interesting is I think if there's anything that touches sort of every single church, whether you're large, whether you're small, whether you are just entering into a new building project or you've been in the same building for 20, 30 years and you're just wanting to amp it up, is I think almost every technical team has to deal with some sort of gear upgrade, some sort of infrastructure upgrade. I mean, equipment just kind of goes, right? And so I want to maybe just start by asking a little bit of a controversial question, if you will. There's a lot of integrators out there that serve a variety of different churches. And you and I were kind of talking about before we got going. I said, hey, let's pause. I want to get your answer on air.
Yeah.
There are integrators that maybe only work with large churches. And sometimes that can kind of cause the middle guy or the small guy, quote unquote, to get overlooked. And you kind of just blew my mind that y'all's sort of heartbeat from day one has really been to kind of be able to serve all churches. Caleb, talk a little bit about that and sort of that perspective.
Yeah. It was funny. Like before I came on staff at Amplio, I was actually a client at two different churches that I was on staff at. And so my experience with them was the end user and going, hey, how am I as the client actually like showing up and being served by this organization that's going to come in and hopefully do a great job of upgrading our technology. And, one of the things that I learned very quickly from Amplio when I was coming on staff, and then also just like hearing the heartbeat of our founders, we started serving a ton of small churches and going, hey, just like you're saying, it's harder for them to get going. It's harder for them to get started. Honestly, we were doing pre-COVID a lot of portable churches and working with them to go, hey, most churches today, when you're launching, whether it's a new campus or it's a brand new church plant, like they're starting in a high school, they're starting in small areas that they're renting from other organizations. And so as we have grown over the years, we have continued to care about churches regardless of the size that they're at, both from small 250 person churches or church plants all the way up to large 10,000 plus mega churches all over the country. So it's a unique kind of season for us as we've continued to grow and truly care a lot about churches of all size. And honestly, like one of the things that I remember hearing early on when I was actually a client was like, we care more from us at Amplio about the churches that we're serving and going, hey, we're not trying to just sell you X amount of gear or this specific PA or whatever that looks like. And there's been times that we've walked into a church's building, and as we pull into the parking lot, we're like, oh my gosh, like this parking lot needs more work than the auditorium does. And we'll have those conversations with leadership and go, hey man, that's great. I love that you guys want to do this amazing thing. Also, like, let's make sure that you guys are, taking care of the rest of the building too, and not just, coming to work with us and getting some really awesome gear and technology for, your auditorium or worship space.
I love that. You were also telling me a little bit of, just in the same vein of kind of y'all's heart for the church, your heart for sort of, honestly, you kind of even went as far as say, we really only work with churches. There's a lot of other integrators out there that'll work in a bunch of different environments. Talk a little bit about that. Talk about your staff culture, kind of what makes you guys stand out that really can help serve churches the best. Yeah.
If you were here in Chicago walking into our office, you would see a big old sign. There's like the second you walk in the door in our lobby, it just says, "We help churches." It's been a huge phrase that we use all the time. And we joke in leadership meetings that the day that we start doing cruise ships or corporate event centers or whatever that looks like is the day that none of us would want to work here. And don't get me wrong, there's a ton of work to be done in those spaces. But we just
don't pass up a free cruise,
I'll take a cruise.
Because you're going to have to do some research.
That's right. I need a good 3-week cruise to Hawaii and back. That sounds really good. And again, there's nothing wrong with the guys who do that work. Everybody, has to do some of that. But our staff, I would say the majority of them have been on staff in a ministry position in some context, and that's anywhere from campus and executive pastors to production leaders, worship pastors, all over our organization. And so we deeply have a heart for the church. And really want to serve them in their mission and kind of what they're doing, because we just believe that through technology, the gospel is heard, and the more that we can help churches use technology to share the gospel is only going to further the kingdom. And that's the whole reason why I'm here, man. That's what I care the most about.
I know personally, when you're digging into a renovation project or even a new build, one of the things that I have to imagine you guys encounter a lot is you get a lot of stakeholders, key stakeholders kind of to the table, and sometimes they want varying different things. Walk me through maybe a scenario or kind of what y'all's process is to kind of help. I'm just sitting here listening and I'm like, I know that the tech guy is going, oh, we need XYZ, but the worship pastor's like, but the church down the road has this XYZ, and the pastor's like, but I want to be a church that's 2 times our size and we need XYZ. How do you guys help navigate those hard combos between staff?
Yeah. It's funny. I literally was just right before we jumped on here, I was on a call with another church we're having some conversations with, and it's the production guy and the executive pastor. And the production guy is asking production type questions and gear and all of this stuff, and the XP's going, how much is it going to cost, and when am I going to have to be invoiced for it, and all of those things. And I think part of our heart in the way that we approach these conversations is honestly looking at the long-term vision of where the church is wanting to go. Some of these conversations are like, hey, we want to launch 10 campuses in 10 years. Other ones are like, we just want to grow from 200 to 300 in the next 5 years, and whatever that looks like. And so as we approach conversations about technology, all of the things that we're doing in, as we would say, like value engineering of what are the things that are important in your space or not, we're honestly helping shape a lot of those conversations, not around specific manufacturers or gear that is the only thing that we want to sell, but to go, hey, it's not a one size fits all for every single piece of gear for every church. There's some churches that have amazing, incredible, and sexy gear and all of the things you see on Instagram and TikTok and social media and stuff like that. But the way that we want to approach it is to go, where are you guys going and where are you wanting to go in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years? And let's help shape, a technology space. Let's help shape your systems to help you get to where you're going to go, not where we want to go. Hey, we want this insane, amazing PA and LED wall and video system, which is all great. Don't get me wrong. That stuff is super fun. But it doesn't work for every single church. And so we want to make sure that the decisions that we are putting in front of a church, especially the ones, honestly, who don't have the tech guy or who don't have the person on staff who's asking, oh, I want D&B, I want L Acoustics, I want Meyer, I want Martin, whatever it is. We're helping shape those conversations to go, hey, here are the things that we've seen, not only in churches that are similar size, but to where you guys want to go. And here's the things that you guys should be thinking about during this process as you kind of look towards this next season of growth for the church.
That's so good, because I know a ton of people who even come to SALT Conference just to be around other church techs, church creatives, so that they aren't kind of living in the silo. And so I love that you guys 100%. Are able to, because you work with churches only, are not only able to come and give them advice on the best equipment, the best technology, but hey, here is some of the trends, or here are some of the sort of systems and frameworks that other groups are kind of using. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm going to put you on the spot. One of the sort of passion things for our team here at the Monochrome Podcast is to sort of always be a place where our community can find new tools, new technology, maybe be a little bit on the cutting edge, or if nothing else, conversation starters around some of the craziest things we've seen in, creativity and technology. So what have you seen, Caleb, most recently that you are either blown away by in a good way or sort of shocked and a little bit like, oh no, I hope this doesn't become norm?
Oh man, there are a ton of different ways that we could look at. Like, we were visiting a church a couple of months ago, and we see a ton of technology all over the place. Whether it's like homegrown, and I'm using a Stream Deck to control my entire auditorium and worship center. To, hey, we're doing full immersive, PA systems in churches kind of all over the place. And honestly, it's amazing to me that there is both technical guys and creative people on staff at churches that are coming up with solutions for churches. Perfect examples, I was watching this front of house guy, and it's so simple. And I'm an audio guy at heart. That's where I kind of started in production ministry. And he's like, oh, our problem was that we needed a basically talk to text comm solution for a front of house guy, because we don't want him to wear a headset. Picking up the phone is kind of annoying. How can he just see, hey, what's the countdown look like on this video so I know when it's coming? So he's like, oh, I found this, random little company I pay $5 a month for, and it does talk to text, and it punches right into my ClearComm system. So now the front of house guy is watching countdowns on videos without having to hold a phone to his ear or wear a headset, in other parts of the service that
That's
isn't
amazing.
Worship.
So
and
it's basically dictating comm.
Correct. Yeah. And I was I literally went back to my church, and I was telling our TD on Sunday, I was like, hey man, you should buy this, because I'm mixing right now and I would love to do that, because I'm just looking over at the producer trying to read her lips and going, where are we at right now? And so little fun things like that make a huge difference in TDs and other production people's lives. And then you have, the other side of stuff that's listening to full immersive, PA systems at churches that we've done in the last couple of years, as that has become a new trend, both from, honestly, tons of different manufacturers do it, but L Acoustics, D&B do a great job. And, for us to be able to walk in and go, hey, that solution isn't for every single church. But when a church comes to us and says, hey, here's the things and here's the challenges that we're seeing right now in our space when it comes to audio, how can we achieve something like that? And then for us to be able to partner with awesome manufacturers and go, hey, they've come up with a solution that I think is exactly what you're talking about. Here's different options. Here's different manufacturers that are doing the same thing. Let's go demo it. Let's go listen to it together and go, what would be the best thing for your church in your specific scenario?
Speaking of fun things, the reason I'm super excited for this interview is you guys did a fun thing last year in Dallas right before our conference, and you're doing it again. We're coming back to Nashville this year. You guys are hosting a free golf tournament. Hopefully everybody heard that free golf tournament. Walk us through a little bit of the heartbeat and kind of some of the details even behind Worship Classic.
Yeah, so we host a free golf tournament every year called the Worship Classic. The Worship Classic was started for people in creative worship production ministry because the reality is your senior leadership on staff at your church, they have different kinds of, I'm trying to say this a nice way, they have budgets to go do those things whenever they want with other church leaders, right? So we wanted to go, hey, what are opportunities for those guys to have a day that's completely for them? We're not there to sell them something. They get to walk in. They get to play golf with their buddies. There's incredible prizes. There's amazing food, drinks, whatever that looks like for these teams that are showing up. And it's literally a day of rest for them. We go, if you don't want to play golf and you just want to ride along in the car all day, that's totally fine. Whatever you want to do, man. Like, it's for you. You want to go take a nap in the clubhouse? We'll go take a nap in the clubhouse. It's totally fine. And so, last year we kind of, without really telling you guys up front, we're like, hey, we're just going to tack on to the front end of SALT Conference. We don't really know them yet, but we know the heart of the people that come to SALT. I've been to SALT personally many times, and I'm like, this conference is amazing. And so we want more of the people that are attending those conferences like that to be able to show up to a free event and get some rest on the front end of being able to learn and build relationships with others, not just at the golf tournament, but then to go right into an awesome conference and be able to do the same thing there as well. Yeah,
I love it because it kicks off a week of learning and growing and inspiring with respite first, rest.
Yep.
And I think, one of the things that I heard from many who were part of it last year is there's community that comes out of it and you get deep connections. I mean, there's, you only can meet so many people and go so deep in the hallways and sit next to them and, sessions and stuff like that at a conference. But when you get to play 18 holes with somebody, you get to build some good, deep, solid relationships. It's pretty special. How can people sign up or learn more about that?
Yeah, so they can head to theworshipclassic.com and register now. Our registration's open. So the day before SALT Conference this year in Nashville, October 7th. We'll kind of start around lunchtime and play a round of golf throughout the day and gather together with everybody in the evening after the golf tournament's done and have some great food and community with one another. Win some great prizes. So worshipclassic.com. Register your team. It's free. So you should be there because it's super fun. And who doesn't like free golf?
And you don't have to tell your pastor you're going to a golf tournament. Just say you're going to the conference and then just make sure you sign up for the Worship Classic, right?
To be honest, I was a client attending the first two. And sorry to the churches and the bosses that I had at those churches, but I was going to the conference and I just happened to go the day before.
Yeah, exactly.
And honestly, that was the reason why, because we know we're not going to get a bunch of executive pastors to approve a free golf trip for their staff. So you're going to a conference, and if you show up the day before, we'll just happen to give you some free golf and food and swag and all the things.
So fun, so good. Caleb, thank you for spending time with us. If people want to get in touch with Amplio or learn a little bit more about kind of what you guys are doing in the church, where do you want them to go?
You can go to ampliosystems.com. connect with us that way. You can also hit us up on Instagram, Amplio Systems. You can also see some of our work there and some of the stuff that we do and the projects that we work on every day and the churches that we get to serve every year, which is pretty great. So yeah, ampliosystems.com or at Amplio Systems on social media.
I love it. We'll put all of those in the show notes at themonochromepodcast.com. Caleb, thanks, man. I'm going to go Google these comm interfaces that do text.
It's pretty great. I'll find what it is. I'll have to text my buddy and figure out what it was because I was like, this is stinking awesome, man. And I need this.
That's awesome. So. Well, Caleb, thanks, man.
Thanks, dude.
Amplio, they are awesome. Thank you for that time to sit down and chat. I am so excited to dive into also an interview that we did with Carson Burchett. If you don't know him, he is with Sidecar Production House. They are a group that works with musicians from anything from co-writing songs to mixing and mastering and recording your music for you. He has worked with groups like Elevation, Bethel, and Bethany Worley. But we are able to have an amazing conversation. Take a listen.
What's up, guys? I'm here at SALT 2024 with my friend Carson. So glad to have you here, Carson. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah,
it's an honor.
We're pumped, man. I've been hearing about you through friends and through our friend Kaylee, and so just glad to meet you in person. And I hope you're having a good time here at SALT.
It's been great. It's been a good day.
Good.
Yeah.
So you work on the production side of producing for artists, and you've done like worship and you've done other stuff too. How did you kind of get into that world of audio engineering and more specifically that production side of things and getting albums out for artists?
So it started as running sound at church.
Nice.
Started with the youth worship band thing. But then the sound guys are just much harder to come by. So I was like, well, I'll learn
especially in youth.
Yeah, right. I'm sure it sounded terrible at the time too. But started helping out there, and I had a friend who was involved with Gateway Church here. And Gateway would typically loan out some of their equipment just because they always had such a stockpile, such a surplus. They have so much gear that they would actually help out these production companies like Transparent or Premier Productions. And so like Hillsong United, Jesus Culture, Bethel Music, all those guys would sometimes, if they were in a pinch, they would have to obtain kind of last minute gear. And so I kind of tagged along with him on one of the Hillsong United shows. And from then I just kind of met some people there and started helping out more when they came to town, and started touring from there, and learned a lot on the road, met a lot of people on the road, and that's where it started for sure.
That's awesome. So you started kind of more in the live audio space, which I'm sure that's probably where most people, I don't know many people who just jump straight into production.
Right. Right.
But so switching from live to the more production side of things, what were kind of the biggest differences or challenges, I guess, that you encountered in those two different environments?
From live to like studio?
Yeah.
Well, honestly, I kind of view live as, in some ways, it's actually more difficult to do a live recording than it is to do a studio recording. Because with a studio recording, you have the ability to stop and redo it.
Right.
You have the ability to stop and completely change the tone.
Change the gain. Swap a mic out. Yeah.
Live, it's like once the red light's on, you're going.
Yeah.
So but it's very the studio side of music is very, there's a lot more intentionality to it. Everything has its very specific piece that needs to fit perfectly. And you don't have the luxury of just leaving a bunch of space for crowds and that kind of thing. You kind of have to produce it in a way that everything is filled.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
That's cool. Very, very cool. Okay. So what is, with the different artists that you've worked with, what is your favorite part of the process to get from like writing through to like demos to producing to putting it out? What's kind of your favorite part of that process, or maybe you could explain that process even a little bit? I'm sure a lot of people don't.
Yeah,
even know.
sure. So the way that I typically do, especially the worship side of things, since the worship world is really all about the lyrics. It's all about uniting a room around this one statement, around this one thing that the songwriter wants to say. So we actually usually start with lyrics first, probably 60, 70% of the time.
Yeah.
We'll usually have lyrics it's literally just lyrics and maybe an acoustic guitar or maybe a piano. And then we'll kind of work on those lyrics back and forth. We'll adjust them, we'll change them, we'll tweak them until they're great. My kind of measurement of a strong song is if you can lead it in a room with just an acoustic guitar or just a piano and it captivates people, that's the telltale sign of a very strong song there. It doesn't need to hide behind any production. No matter, it doesn't really matter how good the band and the music production is if the songwriting isn't where it needs to be.
Yeah, I love that.
So that's where we start, and then we start to build the music around it. The music, the band is kind of the vehicle that takes the song from point A to point B. And then it gets mixed and mastered and all the technical stuff.
Have you been a worship leader before?
I have not been a worship leader, no.
You sound like one.
I talk to lots of worship leaders.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
I'm in the songwriting world, so
yeah.
I think that's kind of the challenge of this producer, this word producer, and that is you kind of have one foot in the worship, the songwriting side, and then you have another foot in the technical and in the musical side. Yeah, you're kind of the bridge between all those elements.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm going to use that litmus test now because there's so many songs. I used to lead for like a multi-campus church, and they do one song on a Sunday morning at the main campus, full production, all that. And it goes over okay, Yeah. And then I would be at like maybe a smaller campus. It was just like me and maybe a piano. And they'd be like, all right, you're going to do this song, And I was like, this is not going to land. Like, no, like this is, it just wasn't a song you could do that way.
Right.
And, so I love that. That's great. That's cool.
Yeah.
Sweet, sweet, sweet. Okay. What has been your personal favorite project to work on?
Ooh. Man, I have a lot of fun stories from all of them. Let's see. I think I did a song with a friend of mine, Zaria Zachary, and she had this song that was kind of like her life's story. And because, we kind of had some marketing behind it, and the artist had, they had this whole strategy, this whole plan. We actually made a full version of it. But my first instinct was I literally just had Zaria play the piano and sing it. And once I sent it to like the higher ups, they were like, well, we need a full band version. We need to be able to play it live. And I was like, okay, fine. But kind of our heart's cry, our heart's instinct was, no, I think it's just you and a piano, And so we did this video shoot. It was really cool. It was a completely dark room, and we only used 2 light fixtures the whole time. And it was just her and a piano. And there was something powerful about playing the song the way it was meant to be played. And also just having confirmation between me and the songwriter, that we both know that we created this other version, but we both just kind of were in sync with each other on what needed to happen there. So that was great. Really enjoyed doing a record with Bristol House Music. They're kind of an up and coming worship artist in Houston. Really enjoyed that process, just because so many different people. It wasn't just Carson and Bristol House. There were so many other people that kind of came together, and so
that's cool.
Yeah, there's fun moments in all of them.
Yeah,
so
that's so cool.
Yeah.
So this is just kind of a question I came up with, but there's clearly like in the worship world, I think specifically, there's been maybe more of a push to that. I don't know what to call it, industrialization of it, and like the product side of it, which I think is important because artists needs to get paid, and producers need to get paid. But how do you balance with an artist like keeping true to their original heart and intent for something, kind of like that acoustic song, but then also like making sure other people like it, and that it's what people are going to want to listen to, and that's going to draw in the dollars to make it possible for them to even do what they do,
I think it all starts with the heart of the songwriter and the heart of the artist. I think they just need to be really confident in that they're saying what they want to say, but also how they want to say it. A lot of times, especially younger songwriters, they will know exactly what they want to say. They will know how strong they want this chorus to be. They want to know what the story is, and they write it all out. But they don't always think through how they want to say it.
Yeah.
Because the band and the tones and the sound and the dynamics kind of all live around that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if they want to be speaking, if they want to be saying it in a big room with lots of people, you're probably going to want to produce it where the band is also playing to that,
Yeah.
right? So I think if you're the songwriter, it's all about knowing your tone, how you want to say it. And I think if you're the producer, it's all about communicating with them and constantly checking in with what they're feeling inside about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love that. That's great. What a great answer. What do you think for typical Sunday morning front of house audio engineers? What is the biggest mistake that you think that maybe that you've made or that you see other people making on a Sunday morning?
There's a lot of ammo in the chamber for that, bro.
Like, you want a list?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest mistakes is just as an audio engineer, our attitudes. I think for too long the stereotype of the grumpy territorial sound man has just plagued and taken over. Not even just the church world, but everywhere. And luckily, I think that's starting to break down a little bit.
Yeah.
But just being a good person and a person that's easy to talk to, easy to work with. You know, as the audio engineer, yes, your worship leader or your guitar player, they might not know or have the specific language for how to address what they're hearing.
Right.
But the reality of it is they're not trying to make your job harder. They just don't necessarily know how to communicate what they need.
Right.
And so giving some grace there, being able to interpret without getting frustrated. I would say that's kind of the personal level. If there was a technical level, I would say just people just not knowing how to use their gear. People just not knowing, not taking time to read the frickin' manual, and really dive deep and squeeze every ounce out of that piece of gear that they have instead of just looking towards the next piece of gear, the next big purchase.
Yeah,
you know?
It's so easy to be like, I want the fancy digital, with the presets and stuff. And it's like, you don't even know how to use the analog,
right?
Or I don't know how, you think, I get the, the big X32 or, Yamaha and then now you're more confused and you can't figure out what you're doing.
Totally. And there's also just, unfortunately, the internet is great for many things, but what it's not great for is there's also tons of really bad advice out there.
Yeah.
And honestly, if I'm being really frank, there's a lot of bad church advice out there.
Yeah, there is.
You're getting lots of advice from people who, maybe mix 30 minutes once a week when there's other people that have dedicated their lives to it and they do it for hours every day. And they've really honed in on that craft. And, pay attention to who you're listening to.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's super important. Yeah, like if you garbage in, garbage out, if you
that's right.
listen to people who don't know what they're doing or just making it up, to be fair, many of us are just making it up as we go along, but some are better at it than others, and figuring it out.
Find your inspirations. Find whose mixes you like. What band do you like? Look into that engineer, look into that producer. And then you can do what's called building your family tree, which is where you look at a producer or an artist that you love, and then you go one step up and you start to look at who influenced them, and you start listening to and studying those people. And then you go up another branch and start to see, and you can really understand where you're leaning towards, what your bent is, when it comes to that. So
that's great.
Finding inspiration from the right people, I think is good.
So along those lines, who do you look to or have you looked to, or where do you go to find inspiration when you're trying to take it to the next level or you're working on a project?
Well, it's kind of funny when we have a project, when we have a client, when we're working on someone else's music, the first thing I do is I have them send me a Spotify playlist of just stuff that they like. Not even necessarily stuff that they want their song to sound like, but just what are you listening to right now?
Just get
that's getting you excited.
Feeling for their taste.
And I'm just going to have it on loop. I'm just going to digest it until it's my DNA too.
Yeah.
Because one of the most important things when you're entering that creative process is you've got to be speaking the same language. What good means for you needs to also match the definition of good for the creative, for the artist. So, one of the ways that I can adjust my language is by soaking in what inspires them.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
I love that. It's very, what is it they call it in the acting world? Method acting. It's almost like you're taking it on and putting yourself in there. Yeah. What's been inspiring them to write that song. And,
right.
Yeah. Because everything you do creatively is just a hodgepodge of everything you've experienced and done. And
it's so fun to just hear one vocal track and you can still be like, oh, okay. I don't even have a band around it, but it's sounding kind of like this person. Like I see the influence.
I know where it's going.
Yeah. Right.
That's awesome. I love that.
Right.
Very cool. Well, Carson, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Thank you for doing what you do. You're just an incredible human being. We just met 5 minutes ago, but I already know that. And I know that because people say great things about you, and that goes a long way.
Thank you, man.
Thanks so much for being here and for taking time.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Well, thank you all so much for tuning in to episode 21. We're so glad that you're joining us again for season 2. Thank you for being here. We're going to have some amazing conversations coming up soon, some more, but make sure to go check the show notes for anything you've heard from us today, info about our guests, our sponsors, and of course, how you can get plugged in with SALT Community or with Conference. Look up SALT2025.com. But make sure you subscribe to the podcast, share it with a friend. It goes a long way for us. And of course, drop a 5-star rating. That helps us immensely, and we would be so appreciative.
I'm doing like they do on Dancing with the Stars. 5 stars. Go vote.
5 stars.
Go vote. 5 stars. We need it. We need to win. Yes. Next week, we are hearing from none other than Lauren Sloat, also known as Fleurie. She is putting out some incredible worship music, but she's also known for her, I don't want to call it secular, but more artist, less worship-based music. She has over 1 billion streams on Spotify. So if you've not heard of her, you need to go check her music out. She is literally insane.
I love her. I cannot wait to hear that interview on the next
So she's a worship leader at Belonging Co., which we're actually doing a tech tour at this year at SALT. So anyway, lots of connections there. Super excited to hear from her. So you'll want to tune in next week and just hear her heart for worship and songwriting in the church. So we'll see you next week.